What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
This is a podcast
RedPubPod
from Redhawk Publications.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are, whatever time it is, welcome to RedPubPod. This is the next edition of RedPubPod, which is the podcast of Redhawk Publication, an initiative of Catawba Valley Community College, located in charming, adorable, humble, pastoral Hickory, North Carolina, and we thank you for joining us. Today, in addition to myself, Patty Thompson, I'm the acquisitions editor with Redhawk, we also have Tim Peeler, who is our guest host. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be within miles of you.
Same here, friend. And in addition to Tim, we are very eager to talk to our special guest today. We have recently published his book, Soup for the Storm. And we are very pleased to have Tony Robles with us. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm doing fine. And, just to piggyback on what you said about being in pastoral Hickory, I know I'm in the right place.
And you are, my friend, a little bit more pastoral than us because you're out in what, Hendersonville?
Hendersonville, yeah. I guess that would be about hour, 45 minutes away, something like that. Yeah.
And just to point out, in addition to the book that we have published for Tony, Soup for the Storm, Poems of Hurricane Helene, we've also published two of his other books, Where the Warehouse Things Are, also Thrift Store Metamorphosis. So yes. You're a three-peater, Tony.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it's an odd number because, I tend to be an odd guy, but that's fantastic. And I'm just, really glad to be associated and working with Redhawk.
I would love to ask you some questions about, for example, the impact of Hurricane Helene for you and your friends, your family, your community. And I know this was back in September of 2024. Can you tell us a little bit about how things were for you, how it unfolded, we should say?
Nobody expected that. We had heard that it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be as severe as it was. It impacted me personally in that my mother, for one, lives near Chimney Rock. She had to be airlifted. She had to be evacuated by way of helicopter. So that was heavy on my mind. Plus, in Hendersonville here, I live in a mobile home community of people 55 and above. And there were some trees that came down, completely uprooted, crushed several homes. We were without power for a time. We were also without water. So, not having experienced that type of disaster was something, very different. I had been in a disaster back in the Bay Area where I'm originally from. Back in '89, we had the Loma Prieta earthquake. But, on the West Coast, it's earthquakes. Down here, it's hurricanes. So, it really had an impact because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what would happen. Needless to say, we were able to get through it. There were a lot of other areas that were more severely impacted than my area here in Hendersonville. But, we did feel it.
Was that the World Series earthquake?
Yeah, it was the Bay Bridge Series, Giants and A's.
Right.
I remember, on one of the news reports, they had seen Jose Canseco at one of the gas stations, with his family, right? I guess he was loading up on gasoline. But yeah, it was Bay Bridge Series. There was the Cypress structure, a double-decker freeway that had come down, and a lot of people were crushed. So I just remember when I was there, we had a wooden framed house, and the whole house went like this from back, from right to left. I didn't know what that was. I just, I ran out of the house. So it was a major thing. And plus a big chunk of the Bay Bridge had had fallen off, so, very, very catastrophic thing.
And to think that you would leave the Bay Area to come to an area where you get hit by a storm.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, first thing I wanted to talk about on here is the cover. This is a great cover, and I don't mean to brag, but Redhawk Publications has had some great covers, quite a few, but this is definitely one of them. It's very evocative. I love the very long line of the hands wrapping around the bowl. They look like guitar player hands or something, or maybe the hands of someone who is casting a spell on something. I don't know. I just get a whole lot of different things out of that cover. And
Aaron did an amazing job. And quite frankly, it was kind of bespoken. I mean, we always tell Tony, what do you want? And we always hold our breath. What is Tony going to want this time? He had a very specific list of what he wanted. And tell him what you requested, because Aaron nailed it. But I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I had this image of a bowl of soup with hands, surrounding it, holding it up. But this is a gorgeous cover. It was beyond anything that I could have even imagined. In fact, there is a guy that lives in this community actually that gave me a bowl of soup that he had made at the aftermath of the hurricane, and the poem is called Robert's. I think it's called Robert's Turkey Soup, and but and having the image of the hurricane in the soup. It's just stunning. I mean, the cover is just, it's just tremendous. It makes me think of, put your hand in the hand of the man that, gave you a bowl of soup, But wonderful,
I do want to show the earlier version, because we here at Redhawk Publications, we are not beyond admitting and acknowledging when we have little snafus, little issues. We learn. That's how we all learn, and we are an educational institution at Catawba Valley. I do believe the original name of this poetry collection was Chicken Soup for the Storm. And we had to change that. And we had to change it because one of our beta final proofer said, you might want to look into that, Patty, because I'm pretty sure Chicken Soup for whatever, it's probably trademarked. And she was correct. That would be for Suzette Bradshaw. Big shout out to you.
Yeah.
She was the one that mentioned you might want to look into that. And sure enough, she was right. So that was like a Sunday evening emergency poetry 911 phone call to Tony. Hey, what are we going to do, brother? We got to change the title. And, we were coming up with all sorts of cool names. And at the end of the day, we just made it chickenless. Soup for the Storm. So
yeah, I think like chicken and rice soup for the storm would have been a little bit too clunky, or chicken noodle soup for the storm.
Chicken with stars.
Yeah.
Fa for the storm. We were looking into Filipino names because then I got hungry. What are the names of different Filipino soups?
Well, there's chicken. There's something called chicken tinola, which is a good soup, and then there's also sinigang. But I think soup for the storm worked out pretty well.
It did. It's universal. You can see it. It works out really well.
Yeah.
One of the first things I wanted to ask you, Tony, is could you describe the process of putting this book together? Because it seemed like you were writing some of the poems in it while everything was going on.
Yes, I was.
Think that's very interesting.
Yeah, my process for writing poems really is mostly about place, about setting, and about people. And what I try to negotiate is the micro and the macro, because I think a lot of times we can get the big picture by looking at the little picture, and then perhaps looking at the bigger picture to understand the smaller picture. So negotiating both of those poles. For me, the poems are kind of like signposts. I'm kind of a traveler. I'm kind of a traveler that people meet along the way. I'm a Bay Area guy living in North Carolina, so I'm a traveler through North Carolina, like I was a traveler through Hawaii, right? And I try to get a sense of a place through metaphor and through people, and I try to mirror that or interpret what I see in a kind of a poetic vision. So with these poems, we had this catastrophic event. I was trying to kind of feel what people were going through, what people were feeling, and how they were behaving in relation to the setting, in relation to what the setting was giving them, and how it was impacting them, and what it brought out of people. So it brought out a lot of beautiful things. Because sometimes that's what happens with a tragedy. It brings out the best in people. And we're far from being out of the woods. I mean, there are people that still need a lot of help. I understand that the new, leader or the head of Homeland Security just met with people in Chimney Rock. And there's been, in terms of the state government getting resources to people that still need it. But from what I witnessed here in my community, I was trying to tap into that. And a lot of the poems were written by candlelight because I didn't want, it was the immediacy of now. And I wanted to write it down. I didn't want a lot of time to elapse between the event and when I wrote it. Because I felt like maybe with the distance, I would lose a little something. So that's kind of how it happened. It was very spontaneous. It was urgent. These poems came and I just, it's like, wow, I need to write this down right now. And then the funny thing was I lost a lot of them. And then it was kind of a bug hunt, and I was finally able to find where I put them, and that's how it got to this nice warm bowl of soup, so to speak.
How long did the process take, the writing? Because it sounds like it's one of those things where it just was all over you, and
it just came. I mean, a lot of these were like scraps of paper. I would have scraps of paper with me, and I would write these things down. I mean, I would get a glimpse of something that was happening, and I thought, oh, I need to write this down. And I would take out a piece of paper or a notebook, and a very small notebook, and I would write it down. There's a poem in here about a father and a son whose house got, the front end got blown out. And, just seeing how they, in the days following the hurricane, how they related to each other, the stress of that, and how, I got the sense that there was some tension between them that, they had to work through given the circumstance. So seeing that lent the immediacy. And then there's another guy a really old guy that, whenever we leave to go to work, right, we have to drive. There's a guy that he waves at us and gives us the thumbs up, It's a poem in there about him, that even though that happened, those are things that can't be replaced. That's a gift in itself, So there's a poem in there.
Do you want to read one of those poems for us?
Yeah, let me see. That was actually, let me read the turkey soup one, okay? This is a guy named Robert. He lives here. He's the guy that, at 7 a.m., he'll have the gas-powered leaf blower going. But this is a poem called Robert's Turkey Soup, days after Hurricane Helene. In this mobile home community in Hendersonville, North Carolina, resides someone who'd be described as the local oddball. A downward splash of brown hair falls on his forehead, and he is often seen bare-chested when it's sunny, carrying his contribution to nature's symphony, a gas-powered leaf blower. You see him one day, and he waves and smiles. The next day, he acts like he hadn't seen you the day before. The local oddball took offense to Hurricane Helene. Who does she think she is trying to oddball me, he said. And the trees were uprooted and fell on homes, and the wind howled, and the oddball rolled up his sleeves and lifted a tree trunk from that old woman's mobile home and pulled her out. He's everywhere now, hauling, moving, cutting fallen trees with a chainsaw. Tonight, he hovers near a propane stove, stirring something thick in a pot. He ladles some into a cup and hands it to me. It's turkey soup, the oddball said. I tasted it. It is thick. It is like no other soup I'd ever tasted. I put rice and oatmeal to thicken it, he said. The stars overhead stop stirring and ask, who's that oddball? I look up and say, his name is Robert. I think of oddballs in other communities across the state who didn't make it, as Robert's thick turkey soup unstills the palate. And I got to tell you, that turkey soup was good, man. I got to say. Yeah.
Sounds like it was more like turkey stew, the way he made it thick, but hey.
It was thick. Yeah, I never heard of somebody put rice and oatmeal. I said, okay, well, he's, for us, with cholesterol problems, I guess he's, he's mindful,
Yeah, there you go.
Well, another thing I really liked about this book that is similar to the warehouse book that you came out with right before it is you have like a really strong metaphor that just repeats all through it. Mm-hmm. And with this one, it's the idea of different manifestations of power, because you have the power of the hurricane, you have the power of people coming together and making a community in order to respond to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, it seemed like that's the main theme in the book.
Yeah. And I felt privileged to be a witness to that people took the initiative and had agency enough to know that, hey, we have to do this ourselves. They're not coming for us. And if they do come for us, it might be a while. And the same thing for when I was in Hawaii, a few weeks ago, when the Kona low storm happened, same thing. It was the worst storm that happened in 20 years. Nobody had expected that to come. And there was a community meeting in Haleiwa with the mayor, and it was very heated. It was the same thing. People had very much given to agency and to initiative, and people with their heavy machinery actually got people out. And when the mayor asked the people of Haleiwa, well, what have you been doing? One of the people said, hey, we did everything. Don't ask us what we did. We did everything. If it wasn't for the Souzas, it wasn't for this and that person or family, people would have died. So, taking back power and having initiative, the fact that it takes a disaster to have that, it's really telling. I mean, we can't run away from disasters, but I guess one of the good things is that it brings people together, and that surviving something like that is part of our story, part of a community story, to have been able to survive it. And also in the book too, I talk about different people in the community. We have people from Micronesia, for instance, that live here in this town. And nobody really writes about them or really talks about them. I mean, they're here, they're service workers, they work in a lot of different areas, but they're island people that are living in the mountains, which to me is fascinating. Well, how did they negotiate that? How did they adapt, from their point of view? And then also we got to remember that, their homelands were impacted by nuclear testing that still has ramifications to this day. So a lot of us on different levels are dealing with setting, dealing with a sense of place, and how that's impacted us and how it's impacted people that have moved from their homes to go to different places, so.
I think that readers will be surprised at the interstitial nature of this story and by who the people are that are living there, because I don't think they know that they're there. I mean, I didn't. Yeah. It surprised me. I thought that was remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a chance to work with some folks. Well, one guy in particular from Micronesia, which is, it's the Federation of Micronesian States. There's, the whole Pacific region. I mean, it's really just fascinating, that whole thing, and how, climate how climate change has impacted, that area and the Caribbean, and just the fact that they're here, and that they have a real tight knit community, and that in fact in this book, I mentioned somebody from that community, and in the thrift store Metamorphosis, I actually have a guy in the book. In fact, his name is Winter. Talk about climate. This guy's name, nice guy too, really nice dude. His name is Winter, but yeah. So not only that, but elders, people that have traveled a lot, have been through. I met people that went through hurricanes in Florida that live here now. So there's a lot of different folks, and then also people that are born and raised here. Like there's a fellow here by the name of Jose, who he's a mainstay. People would think that he's an oddball, but he was born and raised here and seen it all. And not even a hurricane is going to have him leave.
Another thing I would say is I think people will be surprised at the response to all of it from the art community. And Patty can tell you that Redhawk also did an anthology. You want to talk about that a minute, Patty?
Yeah, I sure do, because Tony was a part of that as well.
Yes.
These poems that are written about Hurricane Helene, not only are they cathartic for the writers, for the poets, but they're also helpful for the folks that went through it. They have your words. So I want to thank you. Had I a Dove is the name of the poetry collection that editor Hilda Downer put together with 99 poets. Boy, you talk about a mission from God. She was inspired to do it, gave us a call. Instantly, we said yes, because that was something on our radar. As soon as it happened, it was impacting so much here, even in Catawba County, where we're the furthest east, and we were impacted, but nowhere is like any place else in the danger zone, if you will. But Hilda decided to do this within about 6 months after Helene. And she got together these 99 contributors, which includes Tony's poem. And we were very proud to announce that Hilda's offering of this collection, it won the Weatherford Award from the Appalachian Studies Association. So we're very proud of her. Tony, we're incredibly proud of you as well. You're a part of that. And I'll share that one of our interns was a student at the University of North Carolina, Asheville campus during Helene, because it happened, the end of September, and she was, I guess she was finishing her last year, and she saw that book, Had I a Dove, in our office as soon as it came in, and I found her crying, and I was like, oh, wow, I knew it was going to impact people. I didn't know it was going to impact people that much. And what she explained was, she's like, well, they're putting into words what I had to live through when I didn't have contact with anybody except for the students that I was with for 2 or 3 weeks before they got a signal to let their parents know that they were okay. Mm. And, she described what they did. She's like, it could have been Lord of the Flies. We chose not to. We got together our own little hui, and you know what that is, the Hawaiian term, but they put together their own little group of people, their own little squad. And every day, each person in that group had a responsibility, whether it was to get water, whether it was to go up a mountain and get signal to try to let people know where they are, whether it was to gather food. And I was so proud of, and you could see it was stressful for her. She was telling me this, and she was experiencing PTSD. She's reading this poetry book. She's crying, but I'm so proud of how resourceful those students must have been. And I'm sure that was throughout all the campuses in Western North Carolina. So anyway, long story to say, these words that you write, these poems, they do matter. They do have an impact on readers because, like I say, to see this 22-year-old just reading it and sobbing. In fact, when I go to readings for the Had I a Dove, it's very emotional. People are frequently crying because, we've been through it. So thank you, Tony.
It's an incredible book. Had I a Dove, and I believe Hilda has donated all of the proceeds to, I think it was the Asheville Foundation. And then there was another organization, I think, that deals in, I guess, food, provides food. So, all of that goes to those organizations. And then with Soup for the Storm, likewise, I'll be, donating all of the proceeds to that to one of the organizations providing ongoing support. Yeah.
I noticed you got a grant, and if you wouldn't mind, maybe you can share with our listeners, because this isn't your first grant, not your first rodeo. How did you go about getting that? Because it was smart for you to do that.
Yeah, I think they offer it once every other year. Or actually, if you get it one year, you can't get it the next year. You have to get it the following year. But it's the individual artist grant for Buncombe County through the North Carolina Arts Council, which is administered by an organization called Arts AVL, which is Asheville, right? So Arts AVL. And then, you send in the application. They have the application date, application window. And, you have people that they're writers, they're painters, they're, visual artists, so on and so forth. And really it comes down to, submitting a compelling project. It could be a playwright or a poet or, somebody that's writing a short story collection. And it's up to a panel. They'll have a panel of folks that review your application. And then from there, they either notify you, yay or nay. So I figured this would be a slam dunk because, a collection about Helene and the fact that it had such a profound impact on the region that I figured, if they turned it down, then hey, what can I do? What can I do? But fortunately, they saw the merit in it, and so we kind of took that from there. But individual artists, I think there should be more poets that apply for those, actually. Because I think I got one for the thrift store one. I think I got a grant for that one.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any other poets get that. Yeah. So I think other poets, poets should, actively, because really we could use the money, for the production
And just so people understand the reason why, as a publisher, we're impressed when people get grants, what that does is it really gives you an opportunity to get free books. So that grant really becomes to monetize your project so that once Tony gets his books, now he's got the ability to sell them, and there was zero cost for him. So anybody who's doing any kind of writing, by all means, look at your local arts council. Maybe it's for the state, maybe it's region, maybe it's even federal. But we encourage you to look for those special literary type of grants that are out there. It just takes a little research. So again, we're real proud of you. Yeah.
This one was for $1,500, and so part of it goes to the cost of production and the people that do the layout and the cover, and then what's left, you have to submit a budget, right? So then, it comes down to just paying yourself as a writer. Okay, I'm going to pay myself $25 an hour as a writer, or whatever the case is.
Right. So it works out. So we're real proud of you. Tony, do you have another poem you want to read for us?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. This is called Po' Boy, and this is a poem about a guy I work with who he fled New Orleans after Katrina and he moved here, only to be, to encounter Helene. But this is called Po' Boy. Bobby has a sunburnt smile and skin that has simmered under the Louisiana sun. Fled New Orleans after Katrina, delivers wheelchairs and commodes and hospital beds to those who cannot flee. Tobacco burns his tongue as he spits a string of brown phlegm out the window. It hits the ground and sizzles like pieces of regret. Speaks of little league dreams and a father in the distance, with nothing but grass between them that he cut over and over again. He can't flee the silence between them. Helene visited and created a wide, empty space around his home. Fallen trees and flooding, wide spaces between he and his neighbors, which he closes by offering the splintered song of his hands as he spits out another wad of tobacco. And, Po' Boy came about, I was talking to him one day, and he was talking about his father and how the relationship between them was kind of stunted, that they didn't live in the same house, but he would go to see his father and he would mow the lawn. He would cut the grass and he'd go back and forth and back and forth. And being a poet, I'm always thinking in terms of patterns and metaphors. So what I saw with the grass was that it never grew, just like their relationship. It never had a chance to grow because it was always being cut over and over again, And I just felt like, with him being so active in helping his neighbors in the wide spaces that were left by Helene in his own house, in a way, it was kind of a redemption for him, that even though there was destruction, there was growth there, He was doing something to help somebody else, and he was perhaps fostering a relationship with his neighbors that could grow from that, because that's not something that you'll easily forget, the trauma of that and then the coming together. So again, thinking in metaphors, really just, these signposts, I'm kind of like a visitor, I'm not from North Carolina, but, I have a home here, but, I'm a visitor and I'm a traveler, meeting people along the way and seeing things and just interpreting it, with as much grace and respect as I feel like I can,
Thank you. And I love that, Po' Boy. Again, it's got two meanings. I love it. Hickory is going to have a literary festival coming up on Saturday, April 25th. It's all day from 10 to 4, featuring just an amazing lineup of authors and poets. And it's free. So information on it will also be in the description of this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because last year was the first Lit Festival, and it was so well done that we're all looking forward to the second one. Tony, you attended last year. You were our host for the Poetry Salon, and in addition, you did some interviewing. This year, the host for the Poetry Salon will be Scott Owens, and he's the new Hickory Poet Laureate. So we're thrilled. He's got his room packed. But we have retained you to continue with your interviewing because that really was a hit. When I noticed there were like 5 and 6 people lined up to be interviewed for you, we realized, okay, we've got something. So we're very, very pleased that you're able to attend this year. What does it mean for you to be able to participate, not just in literary festivals, but you're doing a lot of outreach now that your book is out. I listened to another pod that you were on recently, by the way. You sent me the link for that. Tell me a little bit about the outreach that you're doing and how this furthers your exposure as a poet, but also as a neighbor.
Yeah, I know that you have to, like my father used to say, hey, get on top of it, get on it, man. So, because, if I don't promote it, nobody else is, right? So I have to, I'm using social media. I'm also, talking to people, that I know, different cafes and coffee shops. And then also, too, time is of the essence. We are in National Poetry Month, which is really important. I just think that poetry is a 365 day a year thing. But yeah, it's real important because I know a lot of poets are might be uncomfortable with promoting their own work. They might feel like they're being less than humble. But and I felt that way for a long time. But I just feel like, if I don't believe in my work, nobody else is. And if I don't think it's good, nobody else is, right? So I have to believe in it. I have to be, proud of it, to present it to the world. And I think that, whoever needs to see it, it's going to end up in their hands. And hopefully, as well as the book, there'll be a nice, big tablespoon to, dig into that and, they'll get a chunk of chicken or whatever.
A ladle full.
Ladle.
A ladle, yeah. But I've been on the hustle on this. I've been posting this on posting this on social media. Like I said, place and setting, it's of the utmost importance because, this has to do with North Carolina. The other poetry collections I've had to do with San Francisco and the eviction crisis or the police brutality killings that were going on in the Bay Area. So very much influenced by place. A lot of writers will say, well, I'm influenced by this writer or that writer, right? But for me, it's place. It's place and it's people. It's people and place. Because I might enjoy the way somebody writes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm writing like that person. The immediacy of the influence is what influences me. Like seeing the guy out there, with his son, the front end of his house blown out. That's real. To me, that's real influence. And if that is going to make me sit down and write something, that's the influence right there. I think from other writers, what I get is, enjoyment. And then perhaps what I get from other writers is a sense of their grace and how they approach it. And if I can learn something from that, then, hey, yeah, then I'm all for that,
I will point out that you are known as the people's poet.
I've kind of gone back on that a little bit, as I've kind of evolved. I'm thinking, well, that might be a little bit presumptuous. The reason I use that moniker was because growing up, my two heroes growing up were my father and Muhammad Ali, by far. Okay, and what I liked about Muhammad Ali is that they always call him the people's champion, right? And he was a champion for me. I mean, there was something about that I really liked. So then I said, well, what about the people's poet? Okay, fine. And somebody said, hey, I'll make you a boxing robe with it. I haven't gotten the robe yet. But yeah, people in place, and nice warm bowls of soup with oatmeal and chicken to thicken it.
I should point out, too, since this is Poetry Month, as Tony mentioned, Redhawk has a special. Not too many people have seen it because I would know. But if anybody is interested in our poetry collections, and we have so many amazing authors, poets, including Tim Peeler, if you go to our website and use the code Poetry Month 20%, it'll be in the description. You'll be able to get not only 20% off your purchase of poetry books, but also free shipping. And again, I have not seen one person use it so far. So
man.
Slowly go out there and let people know. But yeah, I think it's a great deal. It's a wonderful way to kind of get your collection of poetry up. And actually, I would encourage you to take that poetry book to Tasteful Beans and get yourself a cup of coffee, because they're our sponsors. That's my way of segueing into that. Shout out to Scott Owens and the wonderful staff at Tasteful Beans. We're so honored that they have annually chosen to sponsor us here at RedPubPod. Make sure you get Tony's book. It'll be in the description how you can get it. And also, Tony, you've been really good on social media. We encourage people to follow Tony. You're not only on Instagram, but you're on Facebook as well. And
Yes.
let folks know what you're doing and where you're out and about.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things happening. Next week I have reading at one of the cafes here in town. So, that'll be, it's funny because the coffee shop hosts something called the Silent Book Club, and which is, people come in and they can read their books. It's called the Silent Book Club. So, perhaps I'll give them a moment of silence during the reading, so that, and, just, trying to promote the book, particularly for this month, National Poetry Month.
Came out at a really good time, my friend.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Tim, what have you been up to? I think you're working on a poetry book, aren't you?
I am. I should have one out in the next week or two with
fantastic.
With Clayton Joe Young, another verse narrative book with Appalachian related pictures.
Oh, fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Fantastic. That's great.
Well, my friends, I want to thank you very much. I think there's only one thing left to do, and you kind of probably know it and you'll nail it, but we always ask our guests to say the name of our show. Can you say that, Tony?
RedPubPod.
Wow, I don't know if I could.
Or what about
That sounded like Keith Flynn.
or bob RedPubPod.
Richard's going to have fun with those.
Wow.
How about you, Tim?
RedPubPod.
RedPubPod. There, you get a little opera from me. Guys, I want to thank you very much. And of course, thank all of our listeners out there. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow, not just here at our podcast, but also check out our social media on Instagram and also Facebook. We want to thank you, and hopefully you'll pick up Tony's book. You'll look forward to Tim's that's coming out soon. Maybe you'll join us at the Hickory Literary Festival. And thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Tony.
This is
RedPubPod.
RedPub.
a podcast from Redhawk Publications.
RedPubPod.
There, you get a little opera from me.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.